Shalom, this is Yekutiel Ben Yaakov, broadcasting from Kfar Tapuach, Erev Shabbat Kodesh, Parshat Mitzorah, Rosh Chodesh Iyar. I want to speak briefly today, it's almost Shabbat. I want to speak about the connection between Tzaraat, leprosy, and corona. I think there's interesting parallels and things that we can learn from this. And not just the issue of the 14-day quarantine that the Kohen puts one in if he sees this blemish in one's skin. You can get 7 days social distancing sent out of the camp and an additional 7 days. And definitely sounds familiar with the 14-day quarantine if one is with somebody that was tested positively for corona. And of course, there's issues of the contamination and burning the clothing and so on and so forth that we see the how contagious it is. But in addition to the social distancing and the quarantine and the 14 days, there's other aspects also. First of what is tzaraat? Well, there's a few different types of tzaraat, and there's also tzaraat which affects one's skin. And there's also a nigaim that can be on the house, on the walls of the house, and both are of course checked. This checking is so important. We know also with the corona the importance of checking. The Kohen decides if this constitutes the type of blemish in one's skin, then he has to be distanced. But there's two different issues. There's an issue which we see later in Parshat Mitzorah of one's house that has blemishes in the wall. And that comes first. The rabbis teach us first, God in his infinite mercy gives a man an opportunity to correct his sins and bring about a spiritual cure and redemption to oneself. He doesn't want to have to then attack his skin. Before he attacks the body, he attacks the house. He attacks the walls of the house. Person doesn't learn his lesson, then he will be affected physically, and his body will be attacked with the blemishes on his skin. And we see that also here. We had a great opportunity with the corona virus. We could have, had greater. We could have closed off Israel like New Zealand did and other places did. We could have had that greater separation and greater social distancing. Israel is up there, and there have been great miracles here. But it could have been done better had we understood what was going on earlier. That's on a practical level. On a spiritual level, if we want to stop the suffering, there's a spiritual cure, and I think we can learn a lot from the Tzaraat. Why does one get Tzaraat? In other words, first the nigaim, the blemishes attack the walls of his house, and then if he doesn't learn his lesson, then it will attack him, his body, his skin. And he'll be distanced, and he'll suffer the social consequences. But what is he supposed to correct? I mean, it's like anything. There's a world with reward and with punishment, and one needs, if he wants to save himself from the suffering, or if he wants to correct or stop the suffering, he has to understand what it is. So what is it with Tzaraat that he needs to correct? And there's different views. The main view that's understood in the Gemara brings down in Masechet Arachin on page 15 is this. It comes as because of the sin of lashon hara, speaking evil talk about your fellow Jew. Lashon hara motzi shem ra, and as a result, you are punished. You're distanced from society. You don't know how to deal with society. You don't know how to deal with your friends. You don't deal properly with them. So we will distance you from the camp, and maybe when you're in isolation, you'll begin to understand what it is that you need to correct. And when you correct it, then you'll bring the sacrifice, and you'll do the service of the mikdash, of bringing an actual sacrifice, because you sin, you recognize your sin, you correct your way, and of course we know that the cures and to all of the plagues, and whether it's personal or national, are usually connected to the Beit HaMikdash and the Ketoret and so on and so forth, as we spoke about on other occasions. But Rav Yishmael says it's not because of lashon hara, because of Hotzat Shemra, but at least the nigaim on your house, it comes because you were selfish, you were stingy. When your neighbor came and asked you to borrow something, a tool or a dish or whatever it might be, and you said to your neighbor, you lied and said, I don't have that, I'm sorry, I can't loan you X Y or Z because I don't have it. You lied to him. So now the whole world will see publicly exactly what you have when you're being distanced from your house and when the belongings are being towed away from your house. So it will become public that you're a liar. And so measure for measure, Rabbi Shmuel says, but maybe there's a greater connection and a rationale here to explain the connection between Lashon Hara and Sarodai, and we'll get to Corona in a minute. Well, when a person speaks Lashon Hara about a fellow Jew, or a person that refuses to loan a fellow Jew some item that he requested to borrow, he doesn't understand the old world order. He does not understand the biblical world order, the divine world order. He doesn't understand his role in this world. He thinks that he's God, or he thinks that he really owns that property. He doesn't understand that it's a gift from God, and he's supposed to use that property to serve God and to help his fellow. Sure, he can live comfortably as necessary, but he has a responsibility to his fellow. That's the boundaries of the world. And a Jew is and on top of that, a Jew is part of a chosen nation in a chosen land with a chosen destiny in Torah. And when we understand those boundaries and we understand our role and we humble ourselves, then we are people that can live in society, and we also are people that don't need to be distanced, that don't need to be exiled from our home. We are barei gula, we are barei chevra, we are people that can live properly in society, and we are people that are ready for redemption, not only because of unity, but because of recognizing God's mitzvot and recognizing and showing our faith in God, and therefore we're redeemed. And it's no coincidence that we say that the whole galut of Mitzrayim, the whole exile of Mitzrayim, of Egypt, which is the prototype of all exiles, as well as the prototype of all redemptions, the exodus from Egypt, came because Jews spoke Lashon Hara about Moshe. When Moshe, they went and informed on Moshe that he killed the Egyptian that had hit a Jew, and that unity with the Gentiles, and that lack of separation, lack of faith, and giving over a fellow Jew, that's why we get galut, because there's always a connection between galut, exile, and lack of faith, and between geula, redemption, and showing our faith, as we spoke about. We're not going to go into in greater detail right now. So there's a connection, and we see also the Talmud says that the Jews were redeemed from Egypt when they showed separation from the Goyim. They didn't change their language, they didn't change the way they dressed, they didn't change their Hebrew names, and also because they didn't speak Lashon Hara. And now we can see the connection, because when you say Lashon Hara against a fellow Jew, you're striking God. You're saying bad about God, because the Jew represents God in this world. And so we see the connection between Lashon Hara and galut, and quarantine, and social distancing, and between not speaking Lashon Hara, not showing, and showing the separation between Gentiles and redemption, as we spoke about on other occasions. And we should understand that the whole inyan of Ahavat Yisrael, the whole concept of loving a fellow Jew, v'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, lo tamar odam reacha, these laws in Leviticus that say that you have to not stand idly by your brother's blood, and you have to come to the aid of a fellow Jew. There's two elements here. There's an issue of Ahavat Yisrael, of loving a fellow Jew, great in its own right. And there's also an inyan of Chil Hashem. When Abraham goes out to save Lot, Rabbi Kahana used to teach us, when he goes out to save Lot, he says, Eitzeve Pol al Kiddush Shemo. I'm going to go out and I'm going to sacrifice my life to sanctify God's name. I'm going to save Lot, who was it looked like Avram Klaster Panav. He was like the Jewish people, so to speak, representing God in this world, spreading the oneness of God in this world. And the terminology he uses is, I'm going to go out and even die for Kiddush Hashem. And like the verse says, Vayarek et Chanichav, he emptied his household, his 318 servants. And Chazal say, the rabbis teach us, they turn green. Don't read Vayarek el Vayarok. That's how scared they were. And of course, the obvious question is, what right did Avram have to go out and save a Jew at the expense of his own life? We know that the law of saving a fellow Jew and taking necessary steps to come to the aid of a fellow Jew, that's only when there's no risk to you. But if there's a risk to you, the v'chai b'hem. right? You have a responsibility to live and not to die to observe mitzvot, right? Because nefesh is even dochesh Shabbat. So what right did Avram have to go out? And because over here there was an element of chil Hashem. Whenever the guy can say, "Where is your God, Jew, Abraham, representative of God in this world? If he exists, why can't he save you? Why can't he save Lot?" So when in that instance, there's also an issue of desecration of God's name, and we can translate that also to lashon hara. When you're speaking bad about a fellow Jew, really that Jew is in the image of God, and you're speaking bad about God. And so we understand how this all connects to having faith and redemption, and so on. I just want to bring it to Corona and close with that. The social distancing brings about soul searching. You become a bar chevra and a bar geula when you enter the social distancing and you soul search and you see the hand of God in this corona and you correct it. And how do we correct it? Just like the Exodus from Egypt, but lashon hara and showing faith in God and Kiddush Hashem and recognizing God. It's the same thing with Corona as it has been with every Magifa, with every plague throughout Jewish history in the Bible. Whenever we started dealing with the Beit HaMikdash, which is the manifestation of faith, we're not going to go into that. We spoke about that in previous Shurim. Making Aliyah to Israel if you're living abroad. These are Shabbat on a personal level and Lashon Hara, as we just explained the rationale for the Chiddush of connecting Lashon Hara. In the next shiur, we're going to, I don't think we'll have time today, but we want to connect the whole issue of faith, Lashon Hara, Beit HaMikdash, which we've already touched upon, and Aliyah, and Shabbat, and also to the inyan of Nidui. Because Nidui also there's an excommunication, and we'll see the parallels, and everything will connect all the dots in the next year. B'ezrat Hashem. Shabbat Shalom to all.